Hi everyone, my name is Mrs Kola Oyeneyin and I'm really excited to be here today. It's been a while. We've gathered together for testimony corner or she's meeting. Guess what? We decided to do a collaborative work with She's Network and the Women of Hope and Testimony Corner to have this rich conversation to empower women and just invite you to a journey of reflection and a journey of projection into God's great idea and plans for your life. I'm not here alone. I'm really excited about our guest today. Yes, let me read a bit about her. She's a systems change leader and transformation expert with over 20 years of global experience enabling change makers successfully execute change, enabling people to successfully execute change. Let that sink in. So she's not just an expert in doing this for herself, but now she's enabling people to make successful change and transformational decisions. Topsy Kola Oyeneyin is a seasoned systems change leader, like I said, with over 20 years experience, a Stanford University alumnus. She holds a Master's of Science in Management Science and Engineering. She began her career at IBM and was most recently a partner at McKinsey and Company, where she serves as the inaugural co-lead of McKinsey's payments practice for Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Listen, I could go on and on and on. But I'm going to give you a quick assignment. Just Google this great woman of God, or you can check our website. We have the link in the caption, or you can look for details on the screen and just read more about her. Because for me, is how she carries such power with humility, how she's done all of these things for God, and yet she's still very human. Mhm you know and I say that because sometimes you can meet people and they are lost in what they've become or what they've achieved, but you meet people and you don't just meet their title or what they've achieved, you meet them, the person, them, the transformed person. And that's one of the greatest things I love about this amazing woman. So TKO, you are specially welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you're feeling all the love.
I'm feeling a lot of it.
All right. I'm really excited about this conversation. Like we said, it's just really to share, from our heart about where you've been, where you are, the in betweens, the detours, and just have conversations about this with the hopes of helping women out there, lead a lifestyle that would not just transform them, but transform other people through their lives. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay, yeah.
How did you do it? I mean, your story of of leading a team at in your 20s, like
Yeah.
just give us a bit um like a background into your career. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you. Really, really blessed to be here
Thank you so
today.
much.
I've followed you for a while, I've followed your ministry for a while, but this is my first time. This is my first time without meeting to you in person, right? And I promise every time I think of you, I just think about small but mighty scary. And seeing you live and direct, it's true. So thank you for having me here. I'm excited about today's conversation as well. I think I'm excited because it's a conversation, right? They don't feel like it's like a community give a speech. We're just chatting. So I'm even going to ignore the cameras and we're
Absolutely.
just gonna have a chat.
Yes, we can
All
say.
right. All right, how okay, maybe I think maybe a bit of context would be helpful, right? I think growing up, like how you're growing up, it's like what do you want to be when you grow up and all of that, right? And I didn't really necessarily have a thing of what I wanted to be. But I remember telling my mom that I sure knew that I wanted to like wear high heels and carry like a briefcase and just travel a lot. And I think when I told her that, she was just like a bit like, what is this girl on about and all the rest, right? But I think for me, I felt like my career was like my ministry. And I know it sounds weird, or maybe it sounded weird back then, right? I just felt like I was going to serve God in my career.
So good.
And I felt like God was like going to take me on a journey. And I felt like that was it. Like I often tell people that, and I know it probably sounds weird, and I shouldn't really say this as a pastor's wife, but growing up and growing up, I hardly had like things in church where I was serving. But I felt like my ministry was in the workplace and I was very active in that space, right? I did sing once in the choir. My siblings wondered why, how they chose me. I don't know, but I had a blast. I loved it. And then I led like a small group on finance, but most of my service has been in my career. So like my career, I don't just see it as a job. It
Mhm.
is like where I do
I'm taking notes.
where I do God's work. So yeah, that's just a little bit about
Yeah.
it.
So I love what you said about, I've always wondered, by the way, we're just going to flow because you've said something that has pulled my wing, has pulled my edges.
Let's go.
You know, for the longest time, one of the things conversations we have in Hope Nation, our church,
Yeah.
right now is how do we empower people who are not ushers, who are not able to be singers, to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, to be able to serve. And the reason why I said that is I've always thought that way. So we say, you know what, we can even have volunteer teams, people that because of the nature of their job, they're in and out, so they can serve certain time for certain projects, or people that can serve with their career, they serve with their expertise, they can serve with strategy. And one of the guys, I've just had few people. There's an apostle trainer, Paul. He says something very powerful. He said, don't feel like we with the mic are better than you in the marketplace.
Correct.
And I feel for the longest time, especially on this side of the world, there's this thing where people feel like there's this divide between the sacred and the secular,
Correct.
which should never be. There's this reductive way of interpreting what is Christ and what we think is not Christ.
Correct.
And so people that are not singing, or a woman now thinks for me to be called into a women ministry, I have to gather women and do a conference.
Yeah.
So I wanted to speak into that. Did you feel out of place for the longest time? And how did you make peace with that?
No, you're touching on something that's very deep, right? Because I really feel like for us as Christians, right, like our Christianity has to go out wherever, whether that's at work, whether that's in the market, wherever we're found, it has to translate there, right? And this thing you're saying about the divide, I think is part of why it hasn't quite translated, right? It's like we just want to sort of like maybe have titles or positions or whatever in church, which is fine. But how does it translate outside? Right? I think for me, well, there are two things. One was I felt like in church, I wanted to do things that I was very passionate about. So I led a couples finance course before I was married or whatever. But just because I believe that money matters in marriage cause issues. I'd seen it, I'd experienced it, I'd seen it in my parents' marriage. So I was very, very passionate about money in marriage. And so in this church, they were like, oh, the small groups and all, but there was nothing on that. And so I learned about some course called Financial Peace. And they're like, you don't have to know anything about it. Just be a facilitator. We'll send you all the materials and all. I said, can I set up this group? I sent them the material. The church said, no problem. That's how I was like 19 or 20, not married, not even dating or anything, was leading couples around financial peace. And it was such an eye-opener. And I'm saying this because of what you said about people who maybe they're not in church every Sunday, they travel, and you're thinking like, how can I make a contribution still in church, right? There are things you are passionate about. There are things you know. It might not be every Sunday ministry, but it could be a small group. It could be something that you just share of yourself and of your experience in the church. But now outside the church, and which is where I'm really passionate about, because I feel like church powers us up, feeds us up. It's it's
like
like
it is a service
that they wind and charge you up, and then you go out, and then that thing has to find expression. It finds the expression so much that someone has to say, please, please, please,
where do you get powered up?
Do you understand?
What's your eye?
And I met someone practically like that, right? I met a guy in 2016. My husband was looking to recruit. And we met this guy, and he just seemed like quite interesting for the role, But listening to him talk about his family, his views and everything, I'm like, this guy is different. So after I asked him, excuse me, sorry, where exactly are you from? I found out he went to Covenant Christian. Up until that point, I didn't know about Covenant Christian Center. I didn't know about Pastor Potu, but interacting with that guy, I went to look up Covenant Christian. I went to look up Pastor Potu and so on and so forth. It was such he didn't mention God in the conversation, but from his thought process, his philosophy, how the things he was saying, even him talking about, listen, he cannot even accept a job without having a conversation with his wife, because he has commitments to his wife, just some things, and I'm like, this is
speaking values.
Yeah, so that's that link that
we need to
have.
And to be honest, it's something I'm passionate about. It's something I'm working on. It's something I'm trying to live out. It's something I'm trying to because it's a culture shift that needs to happen.
Big one.
Because it's one of the reasons that is happening to our policies, our politics, is one of the reasons why, for instance, we think humanitarian act is same as challenging systemic issues. So I read something to say, let's just give them food. Give them food. And I give an example of a man saying about, for instance, the church in a city. It's not enough to come to a city and say, you know what, I just want to give out food. You need to understand what is happening in that city. What is the community about? What are they doing? And that's why you see some places in Nigeria where there's a lot of humanitarian art and it's not developing.
Correct.
Because community development is not just hinged on humanitarian art. And again, is where the church comes in to see that we can't keep separating. It's not just throwing things. It's not just, oh, as a church, how do we engage and translate these things? Of which, one of the visions of our church, in fact, the vision of our church is preaching and translating the gospel of Christ in powerful ways that no one is left behind. So when you use the word translate, just got me. So let's circle back.
All right.
Let's come back. So, and that's to say, it gave you room. I'm imagining you at 19 teaching this. And I just want to say out there for churches, for leaders, that you have people in your space that don't quite fit in, right? It's not to label them. Some of them are not being rebellious. They just want to be heard. Or some of them just have something bubbling
In them that needs to find
in them.
expression.
That's that pastor that gave you that room. So I'm thinking about you at that 19.
Yeah.
What influenced your thinking? Like, is it function of your background? So maybe this can help parents.
Yeah.
Why?
So I think, okay, let's circle back, right? So I grew up as I was the second, or maybe technically I was the third child out of 3 children. I lost my elder brother. I was very young, maybe like 2 or 3 or whatnot. And I remember that when that happened, all I could remember was just like my mom's grief. It was, I was young, but I just had that like permanent fix of my mom's grief. And like, no one should stress this woman in her life. She's already been through so much. Right?
How old are you then?
I was about 3 when I lost my brother. And then my mom had like another daughter, then another daughter, and then she now got pregnant again. My mom wanted to have another boy. And I remember like when she was going to have that boy, I was like, or when she was going to have that she must have a boy. I said, well, you're having a boy. And I would go and we'll pray together. And I remember my dad telling my mom that this girl is not okay with that. They are letting her pray with you. What if you don't have a boy? She said, I didn't ask her to pray. She's the one coming to prayer now. Long story short, my mom has a boy.
Wow.
And at that age, I was about 6 or 7. And I felt like I prayed.
And you heard.
And God answered me. That was the beginning and the end. I said, I actually prayed and this God answered me. And that was like my first intro to God. My first intro to God was not really church. Yes, we went to church. But my first intro to God was that I prayed and God answered me. I don't know what happened though. I don't know anybody's own version of that story. But all I knew was that I prayed and God answered me. And that really then formed my philosophy or my psychology. There's just this awareness of this God, right? And then life goes on and all the rest. I grew up as like my mom's handbag. I was very close to my mom. I think that experience really made me had a soft spot for my mom, and I was pretty much like a handbag. Being her handbag obviously led to a lot of things. You're around adults, you learn quite a bit. And then my mom at that time was like really seeking God. And also I've been to all sorts of churches. I was at Redeemed, I was at Lateran, I was at Bethel. Bethel was I don't know if some people might not remember, like Bethel Ministries. That was a church full of worship. We go to church, nobody knows what the service might be, because if we just start singing like that from like 8 to 3 p.m., we might be worshiping. But I felt like it showed something in me around that spirit of worship and of praise, right? And so I think all that sort of shaped me, that by the time I started university, I was now alone. I'd left home and all the rest. And I felt like at that point in time, I now discovered God for myself.
Right.
How did I discover God? On TV.
Wow.
Creflo Dollar. It's come up on all these TBN programs and stuff. And there was just a season where I just felt like I was being cooked because I watched it every day. Yeah, like alone, it was like summer, even your friends have gone. And I felt like that started forming like the bedrock of my faith. Not just this God that was great. Anytime I need him, I call him an SOS. But now understanding that this thing is a personal relationship. And I think that was sort of like that base of the foundation of my faith.
What you said is quite interesting. So for parents, what you expose your children to. The same thing with my mom. I remember my mom, I remember there's one vivid crusade she did, the first ever Women International Clinical Crusade, and we had this thing that we were wearing. So I was
in the dream pool. It's in the dream pool. All right, I get it.
My mom is intense. She's, and coupled with our prophetic giftings, now that we have language for some of these things, and just going to church, I'm hearing about, I remember the first time there was a call to, okay, give your Isaac, this conference we do, give your Isaac. So I'm like, I went to my mom, what's Isaac? She said, anything that is precious to you. And then I realized what's precious to me. At that point, what was most precious was someone just gave me shoes. And by the way, this is the first, I don't know what your own background is. Mine, by the time I was born, I was hearing the story of the silver spoon. The spoons, all them spoons were not, in fact, why is spoon? We're not nasty spoon, So at that point, someone gave me a brand new shoes that just came from the abroad.
Yeah.
So
But
hot shoe that just came, the entire aeroplane.
fresh.
So for me, because other things where maybe my dad gave it to me, went to this thrift stores or second hand or this Aswani and the like. Remember those kind of things, So
It was truly Isaac. This
it was,
shoe was
Isaac.
really
So it was really Isaac. So my mom said it. So I took that with tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
But I was really excited to give it to this God because, like your story, my dad had passed in terms of collapsed in my eye like 3 times. And I prayed. And I was shouting, God, let my dad come back. I run on the street, doctor. So, and then he came back. So he marked me.
I like that.
I prayed. A God answered. So what we're saying is that experience.
Yes.
Now, everybody's story might not be that, but we can't take away like you going around with your mom, seeking God. Me being around my mom, seeing her do crusade, my dad, winner last time after a while, impacted us. Sitting down with tapes. My sister sit down with tapes like if they cooked. I had a note. I was writing. I was just writing what they say. And those I was watching TBN. Yes. In fact, one message I heard that changed my life. A guy, I think just short after a sermon was, some of you here are going through pain. Listen, not everyone can handle pain. It's not everyone that God can trust with pain. It didn't cause the pain, but some of you, it just did something about pain that changed my psychology around pain.
Amazing.
So we're saying that for parents, do you want to just say to a parent?
Yeah, no, I think for parents, what you expose your children to is so important. And just them being around you. Because I believe there are some things that are taught, but there are some things that are caught.
So good.
And just having them in your vicinity can really influence their life and their experience. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about your career now. So you're done with school. So what happened?
Yeah, so I was done with school and God's, the thing is that God's grace, God has been very gracious to me, all right?
So good.
I have to put something in context when I talk about like what happened post-school. In this same growing up, you're reading, you're getting exposed to different things, right? And I remember then I really used to admire Abraham and David. David, because of this whole David dance, like David dance. Like I just like, I don't know. So, I mean, like I do not.
You try.
I mean, at least unto God, I mean, my dance steps, I think he appreciates my dance steps. But so David and Abraham, I was like, this Abraham, this father of faith, this, the one that was sacrificing Isaac and all. And I'm like, God, what would my life be if I could just take you at your word? I want to live that kind of like life of faith, right? And interestingly, I feel like in my career, I was living that life of faith. But in other areas of my life, I wanted to control. So I found that this God, he will experience you in the way you choose to experience him. Like he has many facets. But it's the one you decide to take him upon that you experience, and as many as you take him. So in my career, I was like, God, I didn't say in my career, I said in my life. But the truth was that it was in my career that I was allowing him to flow. In the other areas, I was here. So there was that desire. So in school, I felt like God was very gracious to me. Opportunities came and so on and so forth. I found that every time I want a particular job, that job, I will pursue it and everything. Somehow, it will not work. The job will not open for whatever reason. But something out of the blue, something not in my radar will open up. And when that thing comes, I'm like, this one is not bad though. I think I want this. And that was like my journey post-school. Finished school, wanted to work with Accenture. I didn't get that job. I got something with IBM. I did that. Then I wanted to work with McKinsey forever. I mean, and it was like that door was so permanently shut.
Oh wow, where you came back to?
Oh yeah. That's a whole story. The door was just permanently shut. So after a while, God is so interesting. I remember like the last time I was interviewing then for like this job that I was so ready. I gone to church one Sunday. I was in California at the time. I was at grad school. And there was this one message about buy the truth and sell it not. And you know, there's some messages you hear. As you're hearing those messages, you're like,
You're
I
warning
don't
God.
like this message. Because I feel like, why
What is
am I hearing
me?
it now? Why am I hearing this message now? I'm like, I don't, just buy the truth and sell it not and all the rest. No problem. I took the message. I mean, it was just normal Sunday service, right? Anyway, that week now, I now got my rejection letter. So that day, I remember I was on campus feeling so confused, like so confused, not even so much that, okay, I lost, okay, I didn't get the job, that's fine. But like, what am I to do next? I didn't have a plan B. Like when I'm pursuing certain things, I don't have plan B. Everything was like that. So like, I was like, God, what do I actually do now? And then that scripture came back. Buy the truth. I said, no, I'm not interested in that's my job right now. Right? Anyway, long story, I find myself in Jos. Was not in my plan, was not whatever.
California to Jos.
Yeah.
Wow,
Even
that's
my
such a
parents were,
jump.
they were very worried that what are you up to? Why are you coming to Nigeria? You could have gotten other jobs. Okay, you didn't get the one you want. You could have
So you
gotten
came
other
to
jobs. I came to Nigeria. Why come to Nigeria? We live in Lagos. And why are you going to Jos? What do you know in Jos? What's going on? Even my granddad and I were very close. He was like, is there some guy in Jos?
Come
What
on now.
what is the plan? But then I find my way in Jos. The long story around Jos is that I went to Jos. There's this guy that I met. It was like a group of guys who were starting a startup and all the rest, right? I really believe that God took me to Jos for one relationship with a friend that I formed, not a romantic relationship. He became like my brother beyond work, and he opened the door to McKinsey. The McKinsey that I was chasing and getting no. Through that relationship, he referred me to McKinsey. McKinsey hires me, not at the role that I was applying and getting, but at a higher role, which made up for even the time that I thought it was like a whole thing. But that's how God has been in my career. There was no job, there's nothing I've done in my career that I've gotten like through my own, everything I've pursued through my own has not necessarily come through, but he would just open a door. How that has helped me in my career is because when I go into those places, I know that I didn't get myself there. So God, if you don't help me here,
I'm
God.
done.
So it took a lot of pressure off me because I didn't open the door. The one that I did and I put my head, I didn't enter.
Wow.
So this one, it's only by your grace that I stand.
So where did you start from? You started from which IBM, then you went
I
to
started from IBM, then I went to grad school, then I went to work in One in Jos. Great time, by the way. I really enjoyed my
and that's where you met
and
this.
just yes, so I met him at a conference. Random stuff. See, some of these things that
I'm writing one down. Relationship
God
that is not
orders your
romantic.
path. You just went to a conference. I met someone, and it was interesting when I met this guy. He said something. I remember telling my friend, I have this friend that just goes with me on random journeys. Very good friend from since secondary school. I was like, Yvonne, I said, this guy is different. I'm sure she was thinking again, you have come with all this. I said, this guy is just very different. And that's how I met him. We kept in touch, then found out about this startup he was doing and so on and so forth. So yeah, that was.
Then, because I'm trying to track from IBM and
So IBM to grad school, then to One in Jos, then to McKinsey, and then to First Bank.
yeah, I'm interested in that story.
All right. The First Bank. So I was doing my work in McKinsey generally, not planning to do anything else. I said I was focused. Was the first time I'm focused. But I was in the US and then we relocated to Nigeria to set up McKinsey's office in Nigeria. So we were very, very focused. Myself and my friend, this guy that I mentioned. And then this guy comes out of the blue and says, hey, he just got a call that the MD, the incoming MD of First Bank, and that was the current ML of Kano, Sanusi Hamido Sanusi, had just called him that he's resuming as MD. He needs someone to head strategy, and he wants him to come and lead his strategy team. I say, that's a serious job. I say, you have to take that job. You take that job, you go there, I'll be here. I'll be your consultant. You even be a big boy in the bank. You're not even married. They'll give you multiple cars. You send me one as your support outside, So we laughed about it, but it was like, but actually, he also needs someone to drive transformation. And so I recommended your name. I said, I know. For the first time, I'm focused. Let me focus here. Wow. You go and do that and all the rest. He said, no, but I think you should talk to him and this and this. I said, no, I'll talk to him because I even need to assess him for you, whether you can work there, whether
or
you
not.
can be. So I'll go and see him and I'll have a chat. So that was it. So I go and see him. I'm telling you, like within the first 5 minutes of talking I said, I have to go work for this guy. Yeah. We was like going to church and there's someone saying that, okay, you need to give your life to the Lord. It was that thing. I just listened to him and I was just like, no, I have to work for this guy. I said, I have to. And I think for me, what caught me was not everybody, it's easy to have vision, right? Everybody has vision. Everybody has what do they want to do and all these things, right? But I just saw like a level of sincerity, a level of clarity.
And
I saw a level of boldness. I said, this man might not succeed, but you could tell that at least he's going to really try. Not the one that is just like, we're just saying the right words. And I'm like, I want to be on this ship. I want to be part of this, right? So we talk, and I call my friend immediately. I'm like, I said, I've seen him. I said, I think you work very well with him. So I think you should take the job. By the way, me too, I'm taking the job. So that's how I ended up at First Bank.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you did transformation for how long?
So I was at First Bank. I joined First Bank in 2009. I did transformation for about 2.5 years. Then I got called. Then I joined because of this
Transformation.
Mr. MD.
It
Oh
is
my God.
MD.
Within like 2 months of, and people were saying, "Why would you join a bank for just one person?" This, I said, "What's your problem? I'm joining." Within like a month of arriving, he was appointed by the president to be the central bank governor. So the person we joined for was
Was
now
not
leaving.
leaving.
Everybody say, "You put your eye, will see."
Because
You will
banking.
see. But thank God we stayed back. But then I went to central bank for a period of time to do cashless Lagos. I always tell people it was the first one, not this one that we experienced in 2022, 2023. And it was cashless Lagos 2012 back then. So we did that, and then I came back to First Bank. Then I ran operations, which was like the real testing, no transformation. You're still doing some
No, yeah,
consulting.
the way you are saying it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still
So
doing
how did
some
you go from
consulting.
transformation? Were you're traveling?
So transformation was good, running projects. I wasn't responsible for any particular department or area. I could create my own small team, just supporting everybody. Life was fine. But running operations,
So how did the operation thing happen?
I just got a call from my boss to say that, a head of operations was leaving, and he's looking for somebody who could drive operations.
Operations as in what level?
Operations is like the entire operations for the bank.
For the bank, entire bank.
The entire bank. So your back office operations, your clearing operations, your foreign currency operations, and all your branches, like 700 and
Yeah, that's
something
massive.
branches. Yeah. So when he called me and said that, I want you to run operations, I'm like, no, well, he didn't tell me that. He said, who can run operations? So I started giving him names. I said, maybe this person, maybe this person. I didn't think of myself, honestly, because I'm not a banker. At least I wasn't a banker, right? And so he listened to me and all that. He said, what about you? I said, no, never. I cannot. I said, I cannot. I'm not a banker. I do projects. I know how to do projects. That's like my space. I said, I cannot do
operations.
I said, I can't do. I said, I don't know banking. So he now said, okay, well, no problem. So I went home that evening. And I was chatting with my mom. I was saying, can you imagine what happened? That kind of gist. She now said, what if God wants you to run operations? I said, I've come again. God doesn't want me to run any operations, which I gisted, and I left it. When I got off the phone, I felt God was telling me that, what if I want you to run operations? So I now say, hey, God. I said, okay. I said, if you really, really want me to run operations, no problem. I said, my boss will call me. Let him call me and ask me again. Then let me get some signal. That was at night. The next morning, very early in the morning, like my boss never calls me like early, like 7:30 early in the morning. My phone rings. It was my boss. He said, I know you say you don't want to run operations, but I really, really want you to run operations. So I want you to go and think about it. I say, really, really, really want you. So go and think. I know what that means, right? It's like, no, it's not really asking you again.
Like, go and think about it, but I really want you to do it.
And that's how I started running operations. But that operations, it was a job, but I felt God was developing me.
Wow.
It was
Let's
my
talk about
biggest personal every form of development. In a span of, I ran it for about 2 years. It was a crash course in development because number one, you are in a role that you feel highly unqualified for. In transformation, you're coming into a bigger space. You've not done banking, but you've been doing projects, so you have a sense, right? Operations, I didn't know about banking. I didn't know call over. I haven't done, teller operations. Do you understand? And I felt like I was going to be now leading people who were like much older, much more.
You said you're in your 20s there.
Yes. In my other role, I have like young people around me. We're just on the side. Here you're like central, like
it's management. Is that not management?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, hey God. When they made that announcement, I didn't go to work for like 2 weeks. We're having like some offsites, like projects thing. I just used that as an excuse. I didn't want to go into work, not because I was up to it. I just felt like everybody will be looking at me and they are you. You're going to run operations. I felt extremely unqualified. Like if you're wearing a size 12 shoe, I felt like my size, genuinely, this was not hype. How some people say, humble brag. I felt like if the shoe was size 12, mine was like size 4.
Wow.
And I'm like, God, how am I going to do this? And I think that is exactly why God put me there.
Wow.
Because it was not about how am I going to do it. He was going to show me how he was going to do it through me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that a major career break for you?
Oh my God. Like it wasn't even career. I say it was a major life break. I understood life. I
Wow.
let things
Because I know banking. I
oh,
used to be I also did a little bit of banking, so I can imagine on your level, the level
wait,
you're talking about, Eddie,
my sister.
you come from operations, now they
Your
brought you
sister.
having to manage human internal
My
customer, internal
my
relationships,
sister.
and you were were you married then?
I was in my that was another drama, but yeah, that's a different.
We'll
We'll
get
get there.
there. Yeah, yeah. So you were young. You were having to speak with people that probably saw you when you came into the bank.
Yeah, the people who felt like, but what do you know, and so on
Mm.
and so forth. But God taught me a lot. Number one, first of all, you deal with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so that's what I want to talk about.
Oh, big.
So let's pick all the lessons and use
Oh,
it
when
to
you don't let's do with imposter syndrome, like okay, you yourself, it's not even what people are thinking. You yourself feel like, hey, I feel like do it. So you're not even worried about what you're thinking because you
serve. You're
are
thinking it.
thinking it. So you're wondering, hey, how are we going to do this thing right?
So how did you overcome
But
that?
I felt like being sincere. Do you understand? At times when you have imposter syndrome, right? When you accept your reality, do you understand? It reduces the pressure a bit because you're not trying to now be
Prove
who
it.
you are not and prove. Just accept that reality.
This is a very strange
You accept
one
that
way of
reality,
looking at it.
And what God helped me do, like I said, like this operations we're
Wow.
doing was we're having strategy meeting every day. Me and God, we're having strategy, divine direction, and all like just wisdom, right? And that's why I'm such a big believer in the wisdom of God, and that God can guide you practically. There's a
So
scripture in
good.
Isaiah, I think it's 28:50 or 28:19 or something, 20:29 probably, that says that the Lord thy God gives the farmer wisdom. He teaches the farmer how to farm. And what I got from that scripture is that God teaches you in any space you are in. If you are in
Good.
production, He teaches you production. It's not just that God doesn't just teach you about spiritual things, He teaches you about very, very practical things. And that was what I learned with
Wow.
operations. I felt like going in that role, there's so many different questions, so many different things. And I felt like God was just telling me, like, go in there and just be honest. Go in there and be honest and say, listen, this is my background. This is what I know. This is what I don't know. Right? But it was not almost like going in and say, oh, I don't know anything. No. Yeah. He showed me how to communicate that, guys, I don't know operations, but you guys all know operations. You are all experts in your field. But let me tell you what I know. I know how to
Strategy.
I know how to bring it together. I know how to communicate, right? And I know how to sort of like make a case, right? So guess what? I will be learning a lot from you. I want to understand what are the challenges and issues that you have, and my job is to support you. But at the same time, if we're not delivering, I'll be the first to say, guys, do you understand?
Wow.
And I remember that even as I was saying it afraid because you're speaking to all your headboys and you're telling them that, this thing will be like this. But
Wow.
Asha said it, and it was actually well received. And I felt like, how people are waiting to like puncture something.
Everything came down.
It calmed down. Everything
Wow.
calmed down.
Now.
And then now we could now start. So that was how I got rid of my
Wisdom.
imposter syndrome. Divine strategies. Stop as you
Wow.
said. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that helps you to deal with the imposter. Now, what
Yeah.
about even the practical aspect of the job?
I know, man. That job was, as I said, I was like a life learning experience, right? Because you're coming in, first of all, there were people that had to change roles. There are people that had to also leave. And which was very unfortunate because, like me, I'm like, I don't like confrontation by nature,
Wow.
And it's a scripture I'm working on. So the Bible says the fear of man brings a snare. I'm still working on that one, but I don't like confrontation by nature. So imagine coming into a role where you know that as you're coming in, you're going to have to fire people. And you have to do it. Do you understand? Again, I learned from that experience that there's a way to fire people while still sort of
Maintaining
respecting them
their
and
dignity.
God bless you, right? Because nobody really wants to be. I don't know. I know a few people who want to be a bad person, like just because people should just dislike me and you just feel like that. Do you understand? So nobody wants to be that person. But here you are. You have to fire the people, right? But how do you do it today? I remember there was an elderly gentleman, even my boss told me that when you're firing this guy, people will slap you as you're speaking. Do you understand? Because it's like, what are you going to tell him, right?
Wow.
But again, God gave grace, God gave wisdom. acknowledge them, appreciate them, and then the onus to say, okay, how can we support you? How are we going to help, right?
Wow.
And make sure that, because there's a line, I don't know if it's a Yoruba proverb or whatnot, that you can do the job of a servant as a son or something like that, right? Like you can do a dirty job, but as a son,
Yeah.
as opposed to like a servant, right?
Yeah.
So I realized that you can even fire because you need to fire,
Mm.
but you can fire because you're the one doing that fire. You can insist it's done in a human way.
Wait.
Do you
Yeah.
understand? You can do
Without
that,
missing
and
that
see those are
dignity.
those little things of kingdom. See, because
So good.
we
Somebody else
cannot
can fire.
disconnect it that, oh, it's just work. It's not work.
So
In
good.
this point, that is where you translate kingdom.
Mm.
How are we doing it a human way? You have to do it. Okay, guys, but we have to. How are we going to organize these people? How are we going to? What are the things
So
that
that's the
we all do?
compassion.
Yes, and it's part of it. It's not separate. It's how you live. It's how you function. It's how you operate at the workplace or wherever, right? So,
All right. So let's look at this. And I'm taking time because I wanted to look at the career before we go to other parts
yeah.
of this conversation. It seems like there was an unusual grace to function in this area of life, meaning across your career, I've heard you say something like, since you see it as ministry, there's also a release of grace.
Yeah.
Is it possible we don't engage the grace available because there's a disconnect because you think, I'm in my business, I'm doing on my own. So when I come to church, then this is for God, or you don't see God in your ministry. Do you want to speak into grace? Because for people that know you in your career, I happen to know someone that knows you and really speaks highly of you. You are this high flyer that it doesn't really make sense to some people that is God, that is the reason for your high flying. So can we speak into that? The place of God grace
is so much God's grace. I think the reason why I'm enjoying so much of God's grace in my career is, you know how the Bible talks about, in our weakness, He's made strong, right? I think because I've really just like, God, help me.
Wow.
Like, God, teach me. Do you understand? I've really like given it to Him. Like, let's see how this thing will go, right? And I've been open. It's not my will, but you see, I've left jobs because God said it's time to go.
Come on.
Do you understand what I'm saying? It's time to go, and you go. Do you understand? So I've moved out of places. When I was in California, I remember saying, I really like this California, man. The weather, the trees, everything. I was very much my vibe. It was very laid back. I don't like stress. I don't like pahala. I felt, do you understand? I was feeling it. But I just told myself, to if you stay here, you're going to have a challenge if God says move. It's that level of sensitivity that I had. If God says move, everywhere in your life you've been able, He says park, move, go, you go, you go. I said, this place, if I stay here, it was suffering. God didn't tell me to leave California. I left. Because I said, I know if I stay here, it's going to be very difficult for me. I won't be agile. If He says time to pack up, we'll start negotiating, right? So the short answer to your question is that I believe that I've enjoyed God's grace in the area of my career because I've opened it up to Him. Right? And in that thing of in your weakness I'm made strong, right, has really played out. And then because I acknowledge Him too. See, this life, as human beings, when we acknowledge people, you appreciate people and all,
the gift of people.
Some more, people,
Yeah.
and I feel that the more we acknowledge God, the more we celebrate Him.
Yes, you will see.
Do you understand? And I feel like in my career, He knows.
Wow. Like a clear case of God gets all the glory. Like God is glorified
and
through
He
your work.
knows, and He actually knows. So I feel like
I love the way I love your confidence. I love your confidence. Like this one, I'm not hoping He knows. He knows. I want to level to this day, no. But you're like,
no,
God knows.
I know.
You know, let me spell out that. Then when you're talking about career, I remember there's a part where you talk about inheritance in career.
Yes.
Talking about how you were saying that career is also a case of consecration.
Yes.
Do you want to speak into that?
Yes. And this goes back to what I'm saying. It's like when you said, I'm like, say, God, I'm here to do your good pleasure. All right. Just lead me and help me, right? I mentioned with you earlier, like, I didn't know, you see, some things in your life are happening. It's not like you knew all what was happening. It's over time. As you look back, you start understanding.
Connected.
And you are still understanding. It's not like you've ever like fully arrived, right? But I told you, like, when I was younger, I was just like, God, I want to just see what you can do with my life. If I just, let's do a bit of this Abraham thing. I want to know how life would be living it like, at your word, right? And just that so okay, fine. God being part of my decision, that sort of thing, right? And I realized that what was happening was that I had given him sort of lordship over my career. Do you understand? It wasn't just about me. And even at work, there's nothing you are promising me that I have to do. Like I do by his grace, I was doing justice at work. I was fighting for people's promotions, not for any other thing. But because what is right is right. And I really feel like when you are doing God's bidding, he will give you the platform to do this bidding. You understand what I'm saying?
So good.
Like the Bible talks about how kings are established by righteousness. The throne is established by righteousness. When you are just doing his bidding, you will be established, right?
Right.
And I feel like that's what happened with my career. I just felt like I'm just doing good. Everywhere I go, it's like, okay, what am I meant to be doing here? Like this is my assignment, but what's the agenda, right? And I believe that's sort of what I was speaking to around this whole concept of an inherited career, right? Where your career is consecrated to God. It says, I think in Psalm 50 or so, it says, bring to me those who have made a covenant with me by sacrifice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So because, and the sacrifice, one of the things you're saying is that I don't just stay in a job. I don't just, if God tells you, let's talk about let's talk about the quality of work. Because that's one of the things I've heard about you, that your work is solid.
Yeah.
Like the words on the streets, man.
By
Your work is solid.
by his grace.
You
I
know?
feel that this thing about quality is a very important one, right? Because I feel like by representing him, do you understand? We're representing him, there's a certain level of quality that should be on the table, right? And I guess because I see the practical aspects of maybe lack of quality in our everyday life in Nigeria. I'm very passionate about Nigeria. Every now and then you have self-judge. I'm very self-taught, but then you wake up again and we start again, right? But you look at like little things, right? And you say like, we have this like sort of manage it. It's good enough culture. But that good enough adds up until you now start having issues with like, you have a plane crash because you were managing it, right? Do you understand? Or you have like, a house,
Collapsing.
because we were managing it, right? So I think for me, there's something about that managing that just does my head in. So in your little way at work, let's not manage it. Let's do it.
That would be a lot. How do you manage
properly.
confronting that kind of culture?
I think at times it's like mindsets. Is mindset. So part of what
Was
you're
it tough?
doing, it's tough. But part of what you're doing though at work too, part of what you're doing is you're editing mindsets. I've always believed that work is like playing sports.
Oh, please say that again. Part of what we're doing at
Is
work.
editing mindsets. Because there's some people that they're not going to come to church to come and be. It's at work that you'll be editing it right there, right?
Wow.
And I'll give you an example. I grew up being a big fan of sports, right? And I realized something about sports is that, if you have a young, especially like maybe like guys or ladies or whatever, right? When they're growing up and they are playing a sport and they really want to win and all the rest, right? The coach is like the be all and end all, more than their parents. If coach says you should sleep by a particular time, you see them sleeping. Your parents have been telling you since you have been negotiating. Because if coach says don't eat this or that because you want to win that race, you are practicing and all the rest, right? I feel like business setting is like a sports game, right? It gives us the opportunity to refine and reconstruct because there's a goal in mind. We're trying to hit profits, we're trying to whatever, we're trying to get promoted and stuff. So if you just went in and say we're editing mindsets, what are we editing for? But no, we're not editing mindsets. So we need to hit this target. For guys, once we hit this target, we have to give proper customer service. How can you be doing? So all of a sudden, you can start editing the vision towards that goal.
This is like giving a compelling vision as to why you have to change.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is, and really, my mindset has always been that your pulpit is everywhere God plants you to pull people out of the pit.
I love that.
So,
come a second. Come again, bring it on. I love that. Please come again.
I think we need our shoe. What do you think? Pulpit is wherever God places you to pull people out of the pit. So the pulpit is, mine is this, maybe the stage. And the stage is not because you are better, it's just so that you can see people, right? So it's an elevated space, I'm teaching and people out of the pit. And what you're saying is quite intriguing because I have people some of the people I'm working with, someone I've worked with that the work environment has compelled these people or this person to transform his mindset so much so that it doesn't look like where he's coming from.
Correct.
And that is a new definition of quality of work.
Hmm.
Saying that because we have the extreme of people that say they're believers,
Yeah.
but they go to work just to think for paycheck. Where God can find way for paycheck, and they're not engaging they're not engaging the resources,
Correct.
even their minds.
Yeah.
Because another thing, I don't know if you saw it, says where there's a case of people think because you're a believer, you should not think.
Yes.
So, because the kind of job you're doing, so God is giving you strategy, you're receiving it, but there's a language of interpretation that has to do with a re-engineering of mind.
Yeah.
There's a thinking, there's a quality of thinking, there's a conversation that has to happen. I just know what you said about how, so imagine every business owner sees it as, I am the priest of this business.
Correct.
Every employee goes there like, today, I'm engaging the minds of both customer, my colleague.
Correct.
It's not okay to be in the work as a man and grab the bum of a woman.
Exactly.
I see it. I say that's abuse.
Exactly.
How do we engage? So, but I want to think that was not easy. What are the challenges dealing with? Some people might think that you're just there to spoil their parade. And how did you deal with, as someone that's not confrontational? How did you deal with the hi? How did you deal with the demand of doing hard and right stuff? Or let me put it this way, right stuff that are hard stuff.
Yeah.
That goes against your natural personality framework.
Yeah. It's a good question, right? I think number one, part of it is that you yourself have to develop. You can't say that I'm like this, and I will forever be like this. I don't like you are stretched. That's why I said that it develops. You are stretched. You become stretched. Not because if they left you to yourself, you know how you will be. But now situation or demand calls for you to adjust, for you to grow, and for you to learn, right? So I think that was one. One was that just having to grow, having to learn to do hard things, having to say, God, I beg, God, I beg, because you're going to go and do what you normally wouldn't do. You have to go and have tough conversations you normally wouldn't have. And now you have to have it. You can't send somebody to have it, right? So I think that's one. I think two is that people and people and people, like being surrounded with the right people, knowing like what you're naturally good at and what you're not so good at, right? I felt like as I was entering into that role, God just sent some people into my space. I didn't go and look for them. I didn't even know
you needed them.
I needed them. Well, that's God for you.
Story of my life.
I didn't even know that I needed them, but God just had brought some people into my circle that were critical for what I was doing in that role. And I needed them. I need their blend of their personality, what they brought to the table, and all the rest was just what I needed for that, for that time. So I think that was another thing. And then I think the ability to select that your inner kokosha. Jesus had the 12, he had the 3, the 1. Because those people closest to you, I was telling someone, I was having a reflection, right? That, I've been looking at, some of the people in government today. And I found that, it's not just good enough to have good intentions. I promise you that even it might not look like that.
They have
there are many people that have gone into government, I promise you, with good intentions.
Absolutely.
But the system is set up
to
distract, frustrate, and ensure that those intentions never translate to anything.
Yeah.
So you went in, there's some who went in with good intentions, but everything, they just sort of manage themselves, right? But what helps you be able to translate those intentions to action, right? You have to have the right people around you. And I found that people at times don't have the right people before. If you don't have the right person the right people before you go into government, you're not even going to make it at all. Because you're not going to start finding the right people in government, right? So that's one. Two is like there's a level of preparation, because you can have good intentions and not be prepared. There's no time to. So preparation is the other thing, right? And then the third thing, like I've just been reflecting on this recently, is effectiveness, like your own effectiveness, right? I just look at some of personal effectiveness. I look at some of the government officials, ministers, and so on and so forth, right? Sometimes their schedules are so crazy. Maybe the level of travel and all this. Just from traveling alone, you should be tired. I don't know if you understand. Work has not started. You understand? So how are you structuring yourself and your own personal effectiveness? And then God began to talk to me about, like, in anything that you are called to, you now need to understand the conditions for your call. Right? What kind of physical strength do you need for that job? What does that mean for whether how you eat, how you sleep, how you would, it just requires, and it's a different makeup for depending on your call, but you have to understand it and you have to prepare accordingly. I don't even know how we got off track.
We need to do something. That's me true. In the end of public, we cannot say, But we need to, I'm really passionate about the psychology of effectiveness, creating, helping people to understand the system and psychology of effectiveness. Because, like, for instance, even for me, like the last 1 year, I mean, my life has always been very busy, but the last 1 year,
That's something else.
ah, I realized that statement I've always made, that strength is a miracle. And there is the dimension of strength that comes from the state of mind. And that state of mind is influenced by a couple of things. One is thankfulness. One is your relationship with God. One is the quality of people around you. The quality of people around you also can infuse strength. Because I've been saying that it takes a village. Like some things that, as long as I'm intrigued about strength, I've literally seen myself achieve things that I know there is no way, but that strength is connected. I might be physically tired, but I'm mentally alert.
Mind. Wow, that's powerful.
And then you're beginning to, like what you said, what is the compelling requirement of your calling?
Correct.
Because what happened there, from what you said, is my calling requires I go to bed at this time.
Yeah.
I wake up at this time. I don't expose, for instance, to have sound mind, you protect your gateways,
Correct.
your eyes and your ears. So the kind of things I'm listening to, the kind of song, I'm a creative. So I pick up things somewhat. My work is my head. Like apart from physical, there's a part of my work that's connected with my head. Like what you said about traveling.
Yeah.
People want excitement to nations. Are you prepared
To be going to nations?
for nations? Do you understand? Even mentally, and I brought this to say that from a place of having to make tough decisions, I can fire people.
Yeah.
What I've read from you, that you can fire people and help them, but how do you deal with the ones that, no matter how gracious you are and kind you are, it's still bad?
Yeah. No, it will be bad. You see, no, it will be bad now. Like no matter how you're firing the person, no matter
My own fire, like generally, even doing the best things with the best intention, with the best framework, and people still come at you.
One thing that God has helped me with, I tell people that if I have not done what I think I've done well, even if you are praising me, at least I still feel whatnot. But honestly,
Self-reflect.
honestly speaking, if I've done my best, I've done my best, and my best is not good enough, I can deal with it. It's okay. It's okay. So, like, if I've done my best, I've done what I know I should do, what I believe I should do, and you still see it as bad, or you still judge, I can actually deal with it. And I, feel like, now, wow, after, but it doesn't sink. It doesn't sink in. But imagine, what more do you want from me than my best, right? So I think in terms of like relating with people and all, it's agonizing because you think everything through. Okay, what's fair and all. But you also don't want to be too emotional because you're because some people actually deserve to be fine. Let's you understand? So now let's not start going extreme and being all emotional. That one is the fear of man.
Yes.
So this is the fear of man will bring you to a snare. So there's a balance, right? But after having thought what is fair, what is just, what is right, even if this person was bad, maybe the system also just allowed them to continue to be bad and all. Just what's proper. Once you've done all those ones, it's okay with us. Just bring it easy.
All right, to wrap up the career angle, because man, by the way, we want to pray boldness for people. But we'll get to that in a bit. We'll come back and we'll worship and do that in a bit. But for now, let's continue the conversation on your path in Holy Spirit help me. Let me take this again. Remember when you now wanted to leave, but you felt like you can't just make that decision.
Yeah.
Can you speak into that?
I've had multiple of those. I'll give you the first one. So I was at First Bank. See, it's not a place that, God said you should go and you think everything will be smooth. Things can get rough. And I was having a bit of that at First Bank and I'm like, why all this drama? Like, I'm actually here just trying to, like, why all this drama? I think I'm done, right? And there were some things that happened. I don't want to go into the details. I was like, what, I'm done. So by myself, I decided and I started looking at jobs. I said, yeah, people don't even appreciate me.
They don't know my value.
What's their problem?
They don't know my worth.
It's a problem. So I started looking and all the rest. And I remember I was talking to a few companies. And there was one particular one that had flown me to Dubai and everything. I said, these people understand You
They don't
understand?
have to take your they don't have
Honestly,
talent.
they
They don't value.
understand, all that. It was like a weekend interview, put me in a very nice. I said, "Yeah, I'm in suffering, all this one we're doing transformation. I think this is the level I should be operating at." But I remember when I got home, that after that weekend, I thought just God tell me that, oh, so you brought yourself to First Bank, and so you can decide
Wow.
it's time to go. So go ahead. I said, ah. I remember I just got married then, like, so I don't want, but I said, this is the vibe, oh, so you better just stay. So I'm like, Papa, what should I do? I just be here. What am I doing? And that's how I was just staying. And interestingly enough, obviously I didn't know this at the time, but like a year later or so, the top two companies I was interviewing with and I was considering at that time, one went bankrupt, they folded up, sha.
Wow.
They sha folded up. It would have been a very nice dead end, even though it looked very appealing at the time,
Wow.
right? So I felt like God said, "Hmm, since you now
You
make
make
your
the
decisions,
decision.
you're grown up, so go ahead." So I retraced my step. I said, okay, I don't even know what you want me to do here, but I'm here. And after I calmed down, this was probably like maybe around August. By December, I now said, all right, I want you to leave. I said, okay, great. Where are we going? I said, just go home.
Eh?
I said,
Any which way?
go home and what
And do what?
I didn't, it's just, what I mean. I don't like anything that sounds too like spiritual, too deep, because I can't explain to normal people that it's like, oh, the Lord said,
Go home.
go home. It sounds too. So I'm like, go home. I'm like, ah. I said, wait, thank God, I'm cuckoo married now. Let me tell my husband. I said, this is what I'm sensing, that God is telling me I should just take time off. He was like, God didn't tell you that, told me. He said, now people will now say that you just got him married now, your husband
Now
is party. And by the way, people did say that eventually because you know, he said anyway, he has not heard from God. He can't. So I
let
said,
me
great.
know start one down two.
So I said,
need
this is
that gist.
great. I said, this is great because now at least I'm supposed to, you're married now. So but I'm like,
Yes, make that decision for me.
see, no, God, I told him, he said that he hasn't heard. I know. This was like December now. Like January 2nd or something. My husband was like, he said, God said that he should. He said, better obey God. I said, when did you hear? Wait, hold on, hold on. He said, you better obey God. I said, wow. So,
And this time we were already doing the operations and everything.
yeah, I was. So by this time, I was now running like international banking. So I'd moved from operations to like Africa. We bought banks in Africa. I'd moved to Ghana. I was doing all
But that's
that.
like
So yeah, so that was my role at this time. But I just felt like,
there's
wait,
something
yeah,
but
we're not having impact. We're not. So I felt like God said, yeah, just go. So how do you even start training? So of course I didn't go around telling people that God said I should go. My God said,
wisdom.
yeah,
So
yeah,
let's
yeah,
please let's talk on
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It's very important because you don't want to be so spooky that you are wed. It doesn't help anybody. Do you
So
understand?
good.
That God told you,
That's your conviction.
it doesn't mean that I have to tell you that God told me. Do you understand? I mean, like a
Yeah.
husband, obviously, that's that conversation. But outside the home, I don't have to. God told me. God, it's not necessary. So I
So
told
that
my boss that, listen, I need to take some time off. I even told him I just got married. People, and because I just got married, people would make their own conclusions. I know have people say, sometimes you don't even have to say too much. I just said I need some time off, and that kind of thing. I just got married just to just settle down and all and all. Okay, fine, no problem. So nobody knew that, oh, God told me. And nobody needed to know God told me. And so I resumed at my new place of work, which was at home. I said, God, what's the agenda?
from high flyer like you that is used to
I
doing
said, God, what
things.
is the agenda? Just saying be dwelling. We just dwell. Just be
Dwelling
respect.
there,
Yeah, let's just be there.
dwelling bank.
Let's be there. But it was a great time in hindsight.
Right.
At times you don't know what God is trying to do, right? It was a great and much needed time because then a few months after that, I then got pregnant and then I had and having my first child was, whew, it was a thing. Yeah, I needed that. I needed that time of dwelling and in feeling to,
But the
what about
journey had
strength? Yeah, about strength. I needed it, right? I needed it,
wow.
right?
Wow.
But yeah, so that's one
What do you think
example.
again God was trying to deal with you in that season?
In that season,
Was that
honestly,
where the
I felt like
identity thing was?
no, my
Was not
identity
there?
was
Was the part?
after.
Okay, okay, okay,
That
okay.
one was after.
Okay, okay,
God
okay.
knew that I was okay because in that time I even wanted to go, but I
Go
thought I was going
somewhere
somewhere.
else.
Do you understand? I thought I was going somewhere, but what was happening was just go, just
How long
wait.
was that wait for?
I was there for like, well, I ended up not going back to like work. So this was January 2016. until like November 2017. But in between that time, I'll say like that pure time of doing, because I was like, don't do anything. He said, "'Cause I know you." He said, "I know you now." Because my husband is like an entrepreneur, serial. There will be things to do. He said, "No, I'm not, you're not doing entrepreneurship. You're not, just
Wow.
dwell, just chill." And my husband was also very particular about that. That just obey your instruction. Probably after about 6 months or so, I started, choking my head into things. Okay, let's do. So we did stuff together, right? But yeah, that first,
Wow.
few months was just,
I
yeah.
know. So let's wrap up the career thing with your identity, success and identity.
Oh man. So I'm here telling you about how, God has been so gracious to me, and I know that my career is God's and blah blah blah, all that good stuff.
An
Looks like international.
international,
Yeah, yeah.
transformational
Yeah.
somebody.
God is in charge. I'm giving him everything. But I didn't realize
Oh, man.
that there were still, and I'm sure there are still more that I will realize further down. But I realized that God was working on my identity, like just maybe earlier this year. So I've been with McKinsey and so on and so forth. My sister passed in 2022. I had to stop work abruptly and all the rest, right? And it was time to sort of go back to work or make a decision. And I was here or there. I wasn't sure. Do I want to go back? Do I not want to go back? And all the rest, right? Again, I got a confirmation whereby God, there was, a message. I can never forget. I was at Wolfbeck, and this pastor Nkechi was just
Yeah,
preaching her message gingerly,
she just
and
has a way of just
she
dropping
just
something by the
referred,
side.
just like on a scripture about how you have been at this mountain long enough. It's time, go upward. And just my friend I told you about, she was still in that conversation. I said, "Yvonne, I'm leaving McKinsey." She's like, "Calm down, what? Well, what does that paid?" But that word hit me like a bullet, and so that was like my confirmation, right? So I eventually leave and all, but it's like, okay, to do what? And I found that I had started withdrawing. God knows, what am I going to tell people I'm doing? What are you doing?
Hmm.
What are you up to?
But what's the difference between that one and that time? That time you
That
wanted
time, that time I wanted to leave. Do you
this
understand?
one.
This one there. And you've been out of the game for a little bit. I've been out of the game. After like my sister passed. Now I'm ready to go back, but I don't know what to say I'm doing. And I just thought it was really disturbing me. And because people were asking me questions I could not reply to, I just stopped engaging people. I didn't want to engage people. I didn't want to have conversations.
Wow.
What am I going to tell you?
So that means there
What
was
are
an
you up to?
expectation of who you are.
I just didn't want to. So there was that. And I felt like God was working with that until earlier. It was just in March this year that I was like, "God, what exactly are you doing?"
Sorry, this thing you said is from 2022.
Yeah, 2022, my sister passed. Between 2020, the rest of she passed in March. That year just wiped it out. I wasn't thinking of anything. I wasn't interested in anything. I was just
Uh,
wondering what was happening,
uh-huh.
right?
So
By
2023.
2023, I got this word. It's time to move upward. I knew it was time for me to leave, right? So I was putting in the places or whatever. I gave my notice and so on and so forth. I left officially at the end of 2023, right? But you can consider that from 2023, I was now like, okay,
So it was
what
just
am I doing?
plotting.
Do you understand? And people are asking you questions that you can't answer. So I've been in that kind of space until like March 2024. And I remember I go to church and I'm just like, it's just one of these Sundays where you're just very dissatisfied.
That's like God. So the thing, what are you doing? Do you, do you have those moments where you're asking, what are you doing in my life? This is all that you've been
Oh,
through it.
yes, we have a see, one thing I love about my relationship, because we have honest conversations. We actually do. I mean, it's just me and him. But I mean, I just ask him. So this Sunday, I was like, God, what are you doing with my life? I just don't even understand where I am. What am I doing? I can't explain to people what I'm doing. I can't even explain to myself. Forget about people, right? And I felt God was just looking at me and say, you're asking me that, what am I doing? Like, it's almost after all
We
what we
have
have
been
been through.
through.
Me. Not even in a condemning way. That's the bad part. If they asked me in a condemning way, I'd have even felt better.
Like, yes,
He was just like,
my
just like a
daughter.
hurt friend, Sha, that, wow, after all we've been through. Okay. But on that Sunday, I really just got clarity that, you know what, God, okay, whatever it is you want. And I realized what I was struggling with. I felt like I was trying to know, like, what am I going to say that I'm up to and all? And can my life just be this? Because at the time I'm like at home and I'm like, attending to my small madam. I have two young daughters. And I just still feel, you know what you say about capacity? Like,
You're under his
under
four. God, you're
I'm
underutilizing
not
me.
doing. I'm just here. Are you eating? What are you doing? What are we?
For someone that started a career way early,
My sister. So I'm
leading,
like, well, but that Sunday, I say, what is it to you? If what I want you to do is exactly that, You know that the clay does not tell the potter how to be used. What is it to you? You are my investment. I want, if you know, if I just want my investment to just sit down here and be okay, that is it to me. And honestly, I got peace that day. I got free that day. And like some weeks later or whatnot, like things will start. I just said lights, things that were not coming together, everything just started coming together, not by my own. I
Doing.
always say that I know it's not even the reason why I also can boast is because I know that I've tried things and they did
It
not
didn't
work.
work.
Anything you see that is working, I didn't generate it. God sent it to me.
Wow.
I know. It's very clear. Even my husband, if you ask him, he will tell you he knows that this is inside the thing, right? But what happened to me in that match part was I felt like God had, well, he shaped my identity, right? I never felt like I was the kind of person that, oh, I'm
So
this,
you're
I'm
proud.
that, or whatever, right? But
Ooh,
part of who I was is like I'm a professional person, you know what I'm saying? I'm a professional,
I know
So it's
I'm
not so much about like, oh, I'm my title, I'm in this, I'm that. But
focused.
how I defined myself,
Mm,
consciously or subconsciously, was I'm a professional kind of person.
person.
So when I wasn't being quote unquote professional, I was a bit lost. Like
Even though you're a professional mommy.
who am I now? And
Wow.
I felt like God told me that by the time I'm done with you, the only thing that will matter to you as far as your identity is that you are my daughter. I am the daughter of the Most High. I am the beloved daughter of the Most. That he said, when you confidently, genuinely, sincerely, truly, totally, that becomes the only way you define yourself, not as a wife, not as a mother, not as this, not as investor, not as what you own or don't own. That your fullness of who you are and is that you are my daughter. That's when you know that we're good.
There's
And so that was the
yeah, yeah,
journey
yeah,
I
yeah,
thought he
yeah.
was taking me with, especially on that career one. He needed to refine me a bit.
Wow. I'm looking for this scripture. As
Mm.
you're speaking, that's what is coming to my heart. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's going to be for someone. Because it's actually very similar. I remember when the Lord, for me, and you said about patterns, which I want to speak to you. We're praying that I will now go into the other part of this conversation. You said a lot about relationships, which
Yeah.
I want to gain. All right. And is that idea of a man's life is not in the volume of what it owns. The man's life is not defined, by Luke 12:15, that the man's life does not consist in the abundance of the things which he possesses or he owns. Because I'm just thinking about how, even for me, I remember people say, just prayer. I do I'm this I told her things like, the same thing for me. Like I love the corporate world so much. Like
Yeah.
gosh, what was it? Even though that God grabbed, like,
Grabbed you early.
hey, just leave me. Even till date, like when people come and I'm having strategy session with some people, business leaders, and all, my brain is just like, let's go. Because one of the things God taught me, I will never forget. I was on a plane. He said, "Let me see. Your greatest battle will not be the things you can do, but the things you can do, but I have not commissioned."
Wow.
So when you're talking about this identity thing, I want you to, like you said, for me, it's not going to, because there are things that I've loved to do. We become what we do, not who we are. And that's something God said to me. What does it matter to you? One. Number two, by the time I'm done with you, your greatest identity is I'm a son. I'm a daughter of God. And I also think because of this side of the world, when we meet people, the first thing we're saying is, how are you? What do you do?
Exactly.
Like there's
As though your whole essence is in what you do. And that is one of the things that actually affects women a lot. I see women who introduce themselves, oh, I'm this. And then because they feel that what they do is not, do you understand? So, but I'm just a stay at home. But I'm just, my mom was a stay at home mom, right? My mom, I mean, she was actually a professional woman. Lost my brother, couldn't even function for like maybe 2 years or whatever. Then my dad said, okay, go into business or whatever, whatever. I always felt like she mourned a bit that part of her life that she didn't, she was in, civil service, foreign affairs, ministry and all that, right? But as a child, that's, it was not relevant to me. What was most relevant to me was I felt my mom was so present in my life. Do you understand?
Wow.
I felt my mom was present. I come home from school. I know that my mom is going to be there. My mom was at every event, every school thing. Even if I was just drawing the curtain, I wasn't in the play. I was just drawing it. She wouldn't. Do you understand? And so I'm like,
Wow.
how do you define yourself that, well, I'm just
Just
a
a
stay at
so when
home
you just
mom?
woman, when you, I'm just
And see that thing, that's why this issue of like understanding your own calling. You know, some people, it's not that every mother is called to raise a
yes,
child. So
yes,
it's not that old. Some
yeah,
people are once you have decided to be a mother,
yeah,
you're called
bored.
to raise that child, right? But I'm saying that for some people, like their purpose is to raise. I'm trying to
I get what
different
you mean.
to raise a particular child. Do you understand
I
what
get
I'm
what
saying?
you
Do
mean.
you get? So like also knowing like, hey, this is what God has called me to focus on, and finding peace in our calling, embracing it.
Wow.
It will release a lot of
Yeah.
pressure.
I think it's important hearing from you,
Yeah.
for people like, I know you said some of these things you've done just very, very nicely. I mean, you were heading operations in what year? 2000 and what?
It was 2011.
11 is not like, yeah, it's not like, it's not branch operations or
Yeah.
like branch of one. No, not because there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that the magnitude of the things God has done with you,
Yeah.
your work and things you've done, they speak so highly of your competence, of your person, and the blessings of God upon your life. Now to now see God also taking you on a journey, I think maybe that your Abrahamic desire
Man.
is where you are, is what you are saying, but
Yeah.
you're saying it's happened to you. I can relate with that in an aspect of my life where I legit feel like God is saying, until it means nothing to you, you are not
Then
having it.
just relax.
Just be there, your
My
identity, so that because a lot of times, and that's what I was saying when I was introducing, like, meeting you is never about, even what I've heard about you, is never about what you have done. There's a way people push forward their titles and their possession, like meet my possession, meet my title, as against meet me.
yeah.
Because it means that maybe the substance and or who they are is in what they possess.
Yeah.
So much so that they don't even know who they are as a way. So I just wanted to just speak to women or people watching about the power. Now, looking at where you are now, I'm sure you're, even though we're working it with God, there's a sense of gratefulness
Yeah.
about this identity.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. I know the funny thing. Maybe I'll just share here because God can speak to you in any way. It's not just in church, as you know, or whatever. It can even be in a random movie. God first started speaking to me about identity in 2021, although I thought I got it, but clearly, I knew that there was still some work left. But it was 2021. I was in a work training. This was not a spiritual, it was work. We were doing organizational, blah, blah, blah. And they said we should watch a movie. And I'm like, what are we doing watching it? All these people with their training. I'm not big on movies, not for there's no reason. I'm just not big on movies, right? So yeah, I am having to watch a movie. And it was about Queen Elizabeth. I can't remember. Not this last Queen, the Queen Elizabeth the first. It was the first, yeah. And the movie was going on and going on. I felt it was like a spiritual situation going on. The movie was going on and on. And there was this Queen Elizabeth who found herself on the throne. She wasn't meant to be on the throne. Her elder sister, something, sha, sha, sha. She was now on the throne. And she was the first female on the throne. Her father was. And there was this whole scene where they were putting pressure on her about what to do and how to handle it and all the rest. And then she was just like, stop. We'll do this, and this. I am my father's daughter. And that line hit me
Into
like
pierce.
boom. Wow. I never forgot that line. I am my father's daughter. And what she was trying to tell them was, you're coming there, what her father would have done, this and this and this and this and that. And it's like at that moment she stepped into her identity.
Wow.
And her identity was like, I am my father's daughter. I'm meant to be on this throne. I am my
Wow.
father. And I felt like and that's why, like, for me, it was very specific. Is we're sons. Like when by the
Yeah,
sons of God, we're sons. Do
yeah.
you understand?
But
So,
I'm
but that was
I'm
just like
daughter.
a
Yeah,
specific thing, like,
I'm a daughter.
until you understand that you are and all everything is about just, and you are
I
satisfied
know.
just being my daughter
Father-
as that's your
Father's
identity.
daughter.
That's it. Right? And that was that whole journey. So yeah.
Wow. And I think if you operate from that place, it takes away pressure.
Oh my
Because
God.
one of the problems I think is the fact that, especially in this side of the world, it's everywhere, but
Yeah.
particularly speaking from our context of for those that are ministers and all, is, if I don't know if you're sensing it,
Yeah.
the rate of classism
Mm.
that is rearing his head and growing faster than the speed of light in the church, in
It's
the
a
way we
serious,
do things,
it's a
and
serious
even
matter.
this thing about our identity inch. That's what determines honor. We're not actually being very
Mm-hmm.
honorable. We're
No,
not honor,
honor
and
is
it's cultural. It's not
key
kingdom culture. It's
culture,
cultural. It is a kind of
society
car
culture, not
that you. It's not kingdom culture. Kind of car, and it's coming into a fold that
right.
is the kind of car. So you meet a person, you just greet them sharply till you know that they're the
They're
boss.
like, ah,
We
okay.
say, "Ah, yes, yes, yeah, 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 yeah." So I feel like this identity issue is so key
It is.
that if we can get it, it will help the way we treat other people,
It.
the way we. And I will wrap that up by saying, when David got the word from God,
Mm.
pursue, overtake, you recover all. He didn't quite get the map. God didn't give him
Mm.
the GPS location of where they are. He started his journey trusting that God will lead him. But God could almost bet on the character of David, all right, as a this honorable person, that he will see a slave. Let's picture, his Bible story. Your family has been captured. What's my business with slave?
Like whatever,
Like,
just be
so,
there.
but
Yeah.
God knows that God knew that this is a generous man. So the missing link of his instruction was in that slave person. The missing link was in him being generous to the slave person because of the identity. Not just I'm a king. Like, no, I will stoop. I will take time to fend for somebody else. And so sometimes
I have never seen that scripture that way because you're right. He is going to go and figure out stuff.
family.
You shouldn't even see because you should be so focused that you shouldn't even see. Talk less of stuff.
And they will even excuse
Assist
you.
and help.
They will excuse you that you're not wicked. It's his family that caused it. The meaning there's no reason for us to act out of character as a son and a daughter of God. So sometimes when God is reining us in to establish sonship, is because so that you don't think that your life is consist or your life is about all the things you own. Because you handle wealth, you handle these things. And that brings me to say this, and then we'll move to relationship. How have you been able to manage resources the Lord has helped you in a way that I want to but did not define you
Yeah.
as it were?
I think God helped me with resources very early. You know, at times it's good for us to look back into how we started and our experiences, right? Because some things happen maybe as you are growing that you didn't desire, so to speak, right? But God used those things to help set you on a particular course, right? I spoke about my brother. God forbid you would ever want to lose your sibling. But through that, how Bible says that, that turn your morning into dancing and all. Through that, I came to learn about faith. The other area I came to learn about very early in life was about finances. Really. I learned about God as my source as a child because growing up, if I was telling a friend the other day that it's just like how like now, how we've gone from about 750 last year to $1 to 1750 and counting, right?
And
Look at
counting.
that. I was like, I guess that was what was going up, like happening when we were like growing up, right? There were like 5 kids and all, and everything was like okay. And then I was on my dad is telling you that the economic conditions, economic realities, a lot of words that I'm like, I don't understand these things that you
If
are saying.
economic is not
And when you were
economic,
having 5 children, you didn't plan these economic realities, right? But anyway, to cut a long story short, from that experience, I was just like, it's like I can't depend on my dad. Oh. So I have to find another source. And that was how I came to know God as my source.
wow.
And because of that, he has helped me with resources because I just feel like me and me pipe. He's always going to supply, but that money is not mine. He dictates
Yeah.
what and what, and it's helped me because I'm not. We don't have a relation. We are not tight.
We're not tight.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not tight. But
Because
it was from that experience,
yeah.
and then seeing how God was actually providing for me. Like you need to do something. You don't know where the money will come from. Scholarship will come. You understand? You just see him providing, and it's like God, you are my source. So even with work, and it even gives you some liberty in work because there's nothing you're going to
Used to
put
tie
on
me
me.
down.
No, 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 we'll leave the work. It's not that deep. You
Mm.
understand? Yeah.
So you're saying that some of build memories with God, the things that you're experiencing with God, the things your journey helps you define some of these things
Yeah.
and helps you um it helps you so not to make an idol of certain blessings that God will bring your way eventually.
So
It won't cause the necessarily did not cause the death or cause the starvation, but it will use
through
it.
that experience,
It
you
will
will use
use
it.
it. It
Yeah.
will use it. All right. So how did gratification helped? How did you in the place times of plenty, how did you steward it? How did you balance wants and needs?
It's a good question, right? I think maybe because, like I said, growing up, we were okay growing up or whatnot, but there was just a point where we just felt that economic strain was very evident. That's why I told you I wanted to teach a course on
Like
financial
few
peace.
people.
So seeing all of that, right, and then God creating room and just providing for you. I had scholarships, I had support, and all the rest, right? You're not thinking of how am I going to go and blow. You're thinking of how am I going to help. I'm like 3 siblings behind. You're thinking of how am I going to.
What?
So you just feel like responsible, like I need to put things in place and things like that. And then you also just don't want to be that person that just feel like they didn't get their act together, right?
Yeah.
So I think that helped. And I find that also again, we all have to like search into ourselves, like what is your Achilles heel, right? Like for me now, we all
Yeah.
have
Talk
different
about
wants and needs, right? I tell people that you won't see me, you cannot convince me to spend so much I always on a bag or issue. It's just not my thing. And it's not that this part is not my thing.
Yeah.
But if you come and tell me that some spa, something or something, do you understand? That's my own. Do you
I
get? I
get
might
what you
spend
mean.
it. Another person, they might spend it on travel or this or that, right? So I think us each understanding like where we have exposure to and trying to sort of put some kind of cards around it. And then I think also for me, I had like friends, like my close friends are very like money. They are good money managers. I had a friend, as money comes into account, it's first allocated to savings, this and that is the balance. When you're around people like that,
That
you
so
think
it
you borrow
helps you.
sense.
Yes, it helps you.
Borrow some
Okay,
sense.
okay. Now, let's go into relationships. But first, let's pray for people for career. I don't know if you feel just want to encourage anybody as regards their career and just to let them know that, like grace, you know, um, we overcame by the blood of the Lamb and because of our testimonies. I was seeing how God, you said God has brought some things your way. Or somebody saying, okay, you know what, I'm ready to make my career ministry. For what you said is like, add it over to God. Let Him dictate. We're there to reshape the mindset of people. You are there. So okay, just want to, just pray. Just from your heart.
Oh, Father Lord Almighty, we thank you. We give you praise and we give you glory.
Thank you, Lord.
Father Lord, I thank you for every woman right now listening to this conversation, oh God. Every woman right now who has a desire that you have probably placed in her heart concerning her career, who wants to excel in her career, who wants to do great things in her career. I pray, Father Lord, for a mindset shift, oh God, in that woman today, oh God, that she will see her career, oh God, as a place to serve you, oh God, that you will see her career as something that you are Lord over, oh God, that she will have grace to surrender all, every aspect of her career, in terms of provision, in terms of location, in terms of what she even does, that she will surrender it all to you, oh God. And that as she surrenders it to you, oh God, Father Lord, release grace upon her in the name of Jesus. Father Lord, release grace for her to serve you. Take her to the heights of heights, oh God. Father Lord, release wisdom for her to operate, oh God. Fill her with the wisdom that cannot be gainsaid, that cannot be denied, oh God. Thank you because you are the God of creativity. Thank you because you are the God of wisdom and insight, oh God. Fill her with every skill that she needs, every wisdom that she needs, oh God, and take her to places that only you can take her to, oh God. And when she's there, oh God, help her to serve you. Help her to serve you totally. Help her to serve you fully, oh God, and help her to impact lives in the places that you take her. In Jesus' mighty name, we pray.
Amen. All right. So that is on the career part, right?